Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Emergence Show, the place where we deconstruct the future of technology, plans, and creativity. Today, we have a phenomenal show lined up as we explore the resilient reality shaping future cities and navigating innovation waves. To guide us through this, we're joined by a true architect of accessible immersive technology, Hans Elstner, the CEO and founder of Room. Hans has built the incredible company by focusing on real world results over hype. And today he's going to share that playbook with us. And a special welcome and thank you to our friend Casey Jensen, who is also joining us today. For those of you who don't know, Casey is the head of client partnerships of North America at Zebrar, and an incredible creative technologies in his own right. He's not only a friend of the show, but he is also the person who made today's conversation with Hans possible. Having previously worked with Hans as the VP of Sales and Marketing at Room, Casey, thank you so much for the introduction, for being part of this discussion. We'll be covering everything from AI that builds virtual worlds to how this technology is helping shape the cities of tomorrow. As we go, please drop your questions in the chat, tag your colleague who needs to see this, and share your thoughts. Let's make this an interactive discussion. All right, let's get into it. How are you all doing today?
Awesome.
Oh, and I'm doing great. And thank you very much for having us.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, let's just do a quick intro. I mean, I did make the introduction, but I want to hear a little bit more about how you guys met and, the story that, the personal, professional journey hence that you had to get you to build this great company.
So, maybe let's start there. So it was ways back when my journey began. It was around in the age of 13 when I got my first real computer from my dad, in fact. And back then PCs were quite expensive. So initially I just played games mostly at my friends' houses. And eventually I became fascinated with creating my own games and worlds and stories when I just understood that it is possible to create games on my own. And so I started programming, developing simple modifications, and later even contributed to popular games like Command and Conquer. And my very, very first significant 3D project was modeling my computer speaker and creating a fly-through into it with detailed circuits, boards, and components. And this very early experience sparked somehow that lifelong passion for creating something, making it visual. And I realized that the incredible joy and potential in bringing my own imaginative ideas to life, creating interactive worlds, and enabling others to experience them. From that moment, I just dreamed of making immersive 3D worlds, building them accessible for anyone, and not just for programmers and professional artists, just for everyone. So our slogan was democratizing 3D, and I was very lucky that I met, for example, during my journey, Casey, supporting us, helping us, making us understanding the American markets. And it needs support and people that really love that immersive journey in the end.
Love it. Anything you want to add, Casey?
No, I mean, I was very lucky to meet Hans. I think we ran across each other at a virtual event first, and I reached out to him and saw what they're doing. And I thought, at the time I just come out doing a lot of stuff in really big POC stuff with the government and with Mattel, a lot of big companies that were, able to spend a ton of money and do things. But my background was always, back in ad tech when I was working with all the big agencies and brands. And I always wanted to figure out, when can these technologies start being used by these customers? Because it was out of reach for many of them for a long time. And when I ran across Hans and Room, I immediately thought, because of it being web-based and the accessibility and democratizing, I thought, man, finally, okay, there's something here that marketing teams and other teams within companies can actually get into and start utilizing and be able to update and make it evergreen. And that was all things that sort of check boxes to me that, man, this is something that, this is something special, and it's great. And now, as I've told you, Nico, many times after we've been listening to a podcast or watching something, I've said, man, Room was doing that 3 years ago, man. It's like they were way ahead of the curve. So it's and with being ahead of the curve, it comes with its own set of problems, right? And now I think they're able to really take advantage of all that learning and what's going on. So yeah, I'm just really excited. It's been amazing to know Hans, and his team is amazing, and his family, and it's really cool. So
wow.
Thank you.
This is just a demonstration of a good relationship, and thank you so much for sharing more. Awesome. So let's talk about kind of the journey. I know that you guys started Room before, metaverse was even exciting and a hype about it during the pandemic. Maybe you guys can share a little bit about, what was the origination of Room like, and then how did it evolve during the pandemic, after the pandemic? Kind of what was it like to build something so innovative so early on, be ahead of the curve, and then continue evolving even when people are not taking metaverse any seriously anymore?
So maybe starting there. So my entrepreneurial journey actually began around 14 or something. So as I said, I started programming computer games and modifying them and so on. And then I started working for more and more companies, taking care of their networks, digitizing stuff. And in the age of 18, then I just founded my very first company. And I then studied internet business engineering with a very strong focus on e-commerce and also entrepreneurial skills. And during that time, I used to be a consultant for digital transformation for bigger companies such as Bosch, for example, and also Subways and Hewlett Packard. And what I saw again and again is that lack of usage of 3D technology. For example, when demonstrating a product on the web, it could be so useful. That's what I thought, to use 3D technology for your customers, for your partners, for your employees, for marketing purposes, for training purposes, and so on. And that lack of usage that made me wondering, and I was just searching for a suitable solution that could work for these companies. And in fact, I was also recognizing that there is no suitable solution that is easy to use. All of them were too complicated, needed high skills, they were costly, they were not that accessible, and they required specialized hardware. And that was somehow the time when I thought, okay, maybe it needs us to create something that is really easy to use, pretty modular, scalable, accessible, and easy to integrate, just web-based, easy to integrate into any existing solution. And that was also the pitch back these times. So when I was on the stage pitching Room, I was always telling them, Room is written with 3.0 for a reason, because when you look around online, then you get that feeling that the world is very 2D-ish, very flat. But in fact, it is not. So it should be also 3D in the online world. That's why we added that additional O. So it's X, Y, and Z, the 3 dimensions of the space in the end. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Thank you for the origin story. And we will get to the, evolution of this. But let's say hi to our amazing audience who are joining us live. Please comment, anyone who is joining us live, so we know you are here. Thank you, Shadi, Jean, Alexander, and Halil. And anyone else who will be watching the recording, we're so grateful for you. Feel free to tag your friends to join us and ask questions and share your comments. All right, so let's get into this evolution during the pandemic, and now that metaverse is not as exciting. Some people call it spatial computing, some people calling it XR, and so on. So how did this evolution work for you guys? How did you change your strategy over time? During the pandemic, it was more obvious that people wanted to do something virtual that feels more real, and then the term metaverse became so exciting, and so on. So tell us a little bit about how you changed and evolved throughout this.
So that's the original idea for Room, that was in 2012 and something like this. And in the very beginning, it was that very strong focus on B2B showrooms, as I said. And we raised a lot of money in the very beginning of 2020. And we thought, okay, let's get to the big trade shows and all the exhibitions and presenting Room, get into all that companies. And then the pandemic crisis started, and it was a lot of headache, no idea what we should do. We can't go to trade fairs and so on. And we do have that, it's called Scheiladi and Scheilado in Germany. So maybe it's a very long Tuesday and a very long Thursday. So we have these days where we stay in office for after midnight something, and thinking about things and doing our startup stuff and so on. And we were iterating and discussing what we can do in that situation. And then we thought, okay, we do have everything here in place to just create our very own exhibition trade show, just demoing Room. That was the very first idea. And then we talked and we thought, okay, we could also give that experience to other companies. And so we did. And then we put it online, and after doing so it felt like we are the very first guys doing that. I have no idea if it was that way. And more and more companies were reaching out to us. And then the IFA, the very big, it's an equivalent to the CES in Las Vegas in Germany. It's an amazing trade fair. And they reached out to us and asked us to do their trade show in a hybrid way within 6 weeks for 5,000 exhibitors and around 300,000 visitors, attendees. And we developed that solution, focused on that stuff, and that somehow sets the very base of our solution. And then we used that again and again for other companies. And that was pretty helpful, developing that solution, focusing on that, having a very scalable solution in place. And so we got a lot of very big customers globally.
That's amazing. So being well prepared even before the hype helped you to kind of streamline this. And how has it changed after the hype? Now that the shift of attention has shifted to something else, like XR glasses and so on.
Yeah. So maybe starting there. So after that pandemic, there was that big metaverse hype. You for sure remember. So it was somehow Meta and Mark Zuckerberg saying metaverse, I don't know, 90 something times, and renaming Facebook to Meta, and there was a huge hype. So people were reaching out to us and just asking, Room, I do need some metaverse mixed with blockchain. so Web3 and all that stuff. So there was another hype, and that hype was even bigger than the pandemic crisis requests and so on. So, but they had no idea for what they need the metaverse, but they thought they need it because, yeah, everyone was talking about that. And the real problem then came in the very beginning in 2022. Also, again, with the Ukrainian crisis and so on. So with all that problems, and so people were not focusing that much on that stuff, focusing more and more on AI. For sure, it's really helpful. And so it was then more a game of figuring out what is the real return on invest. So what is the argumentation to get into these customers? And we had to adapt quickly, so to say. Yeah.
So maybe you can share a little bit about how you adapted and how did you adapt your strategy and stayed relevant, even though all these hypes were happening and still are happening. And Casey, if you want to jump in, feel free.
Sure. I think, it's funny because Hans, Nico and I met when I was doing that keynote at Immer Summit, and that's when Nico was in the audience, and we met afterwards, and we were like, metaverse. We were telling everybody how this could be used, and everybody was excited about it. And I think I think it's always one of these things is when it comes down to it, as Hans mentioned, whether it's wars or economy or all the things that happened and the overhype, that was out there, it all then goes back to a lot of the big, innovation budgets start sort of pulling back a little bit, getting redirected. And then it goes back to what it always is, which is how can we solve a pain? The customers want to know, how can we solve a pain, and how can we show, especially at that time, then how can we show ROI? And so I think, while before that, there's a lot of people doing a lot of cool, fun stuff, throwing it out there, starting to test things. And then it quickly went to, okay, yeah, that's all cool, but how can this help me today and do this? And I think that's really quickly when, we started seeing that, in training and simulation, those areas which Room had already done a lot of work in were areas that, okay, these are areas that totally make sense to people and can show them ROI very quickly, whether it's onboarding or different things like that. And they already had this, they already had a great foot in and working on big events and stuff, which now, they've been able to take that now and come back around. And they've always, I think Room's always had this event business and been very good with their platform at doing that. So that was, I think, really smart to keep that as this steady piece that kept getting better. But they also could go out and try a lot of different things. And I know, I'll tell you, if AI and the technologies that are right now, if they were 2 years ago, Room was really positioned to take advantage of a lot of those technologies. And now that's what I'm excited about for Hans and the team at Room, is that with AI where it is, I know they've been doing lots of work in AI for a while now, and where the technology is, where you can really start creating these worlds and stuff and doing really fabulous things. I think, sometimes you can get ahead of the industry, right? And then when the economies and stuff start playing around, it can make it even harder. But the people who push through that, I think me and Hans talked about this many times, the people that can push through, keep pushing through, even through the really hard times, they're the ones that are going to come out on top later, because we lost a lot of companies. We lost a lot of people with other companies in the industry. And that's why I kept saying, just keep pushing, because you've got all the learnings and the foundations. And now I think they're at that point where all the technology's caught up and there's some special things that can happen. So
it's about, as you said, keep pushing, keep moving. And it was also figuring out new personas. So there were other peoples that bought our solution before the down, and then figuring out who are the right persons to target. which type of products. And for example, training was not that much in focus before. So it was more about events and hybrid solutions and meetings, and then of figuring out, okay, training, could training be a case? And then if I should recommend a book, it's maybe some of you already read. It's Eric Ries, The Lean Startup. So it's a recommendation. It's about, so MVP as a wording, as a minimum viable product. And so he somehow invented that approach. It's about experience. So having an idea, then creating something very small, having some ideas of how to measure, doing so, measuring it, then comparing, and then figuring out, okay, was that worth the work or not? Instead of leaning in, build something for an amazing amount of money, and then figuring out 2 years later, okay, no potential customers for that. So that is also very helpful, being very agile, and asking all the questions, figuring out, is it right what we are doing? Is there another market, and so on, to navigate through such a challenging time, so to say.
Love it. Thank you so much, you all, sharing this. And thanks to our amazing audience for being here and asking questions and sharing comments. Ian agrees with you. And Brian is excited about the overlap between AI and virtual environments, which we will talk about soon. Awesome. So let's talk about the platform itself. Is there a kind of short video you want to share with us, Hans, in terms of like how it looks like? And then we can dig deeper into what makes it different.
So maybe better not to share all about the platform, because it will take time, because it's a very amazing, comprehensive, but easy to use platform. But I will give you an insight into our space editor. It's a, let's say, a content management tool.
Sure.
And it's inspired, because I read that here in the comments. So is there a video game that inspired your vision? Pretty nice question. Thank you for that. And it's, as you will maybe recognize, it's somehow The Sims. So maybe some of you guys are familiar with that games. So I already played that, and some others. So I thought it should be very easy to use. Just placing something, starting with a template of, we do have now 150 different spaces inside the system. So you can select a case that fits for you. It's already prepared, easy to use. And then you can click on something, just change a color, add something, add the video, and so on. So very easy to use, as you see. And that was somehow the inspiration for the creation of that product. And we thought it should be all web-based, because when focusing B2B, so there is an IT department, maybe some of you heard about that, and they are not always willing to accept new software and so on. So by doing that as a web-based solution, it's easier to get into that. And having not that barriers when it comes to the hardware also is pretty helpful. So that's why we thought, okay, it should be somehow web-based. And that was the tricky part, to be honest.
Yeah, there's always a hype around XR being the primary use case, because then you can go all in and you really feel it. But also it's not as feasible for everyone. So that makes sense. When your goal was to democratize 3D, then using a web platform makes a lot more sense, especially for B2B that may not have all the resources in the beginning when they want to kind of test this and prove the ROI. Awesome. And thanks for the great question, Shada, related to the video games. Yes, a lot of us know Sims, and it was very common. Everybody was, when metaverse became very exciting, everybody was like, oh, ideally we want something like Sims. So you already have that. That is awesome. Yeah. This fact that you also showed is kind of like a drag and drop. So that is that the reason behind the creative first mentality. Like you wanted them to do it without knowing how to code and be very technical.
Yeah. So as I said, so the slogan, the claim, or the purpose, the approach was always democratizing 3D. So it should be something that could be used by anyone, utilized by anyone, no matter which skills they have. So for sure, you can also create something in Blender. So if you're a 3D artist and you can use that and connect that with Room and use it if you have that skill. But most of the people out there, they potentially are creative, they have ideas, but maybe they do not have the skills for creating 3D experiences, and especially interactive 3D experiences. And so it was that approach, doing something drag and drop, giving them templates. So all the successful software solutions out there, they typically have something to start with, a starting point, like templates, like Miro, when it is about post-its, for example, it's also about templates. And that was one part of the approach, and the other part was making it easy to create 3D objects, your own 3D objects, and so on.
Love it. Awesome. And I heard that you guys also created a community of creators. Maybe you can share a little bit about that, how you kind of tackled the B2C side. And I talked to you earlier before that you're looking into coming back to that. Maybe tell us a little bit more on that side, and we can address a few questions related to that as well.
Yeah. So typically, to run a successful platform, you need content. And you can for sure create that content on your own, or you could let your help and create a community that is creating the content. So that is maybe one pretty easy and clear approach. And somehow, if someone is asking who inspired you for that, it's for example, WordPress. It's also about other more gamified frameworks for computer games and so on. So it's about a community that is creating something. And what we did now, we have, I don't know, a bit more than 50,000 users inside the platform that are creating something. And one thought that popped up in my mind was, why not let them share their content instead of just let them create something and bring that to life? Let them share the spaces, let them share the 3D objects. And now we release that within the next week. So it's about sharing objects and spaces for free or with a paid plan. And compared to other platforms, it's not about selling your 3D stuff. So that's what some people know already, 3D artists and so on. It's about a monthly fee for let someone use that. So it's a full control, and I'm pretty sure that creators also will love that. So it's that idea of the income stream that maybe is generated by that. So yeah, community
kind
is
of like
really
Roblox, right? Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Casey, would you like to add anything on this topic before we get into the questions?
One thing when it comes to, I think what I think the platform, what I found is creating in it, and hey, even I can create in it, which is great. I think I'm a creative all the time, but Room makes it really easy to create these spaces. And one thing I've seen is that they've done a great job keeping it very consistent as far as it always works. It's always up. It's always doing what it needs to do, which is so key for this kind of stuff, and being able to work efficiently within it and be able to scale with it. And I think that's been a big thing. I'd love to learn from Hans more about, because I know some of the stuff that when I was there, we were working on some AI avatars and different things for different clients. I'd love to understand more sort of where things have progressed now since all the AI stuff. What are the things that you guys are able to do now, which I'm excited to hear about.
Well, before we get into that, let's address a couple of questions. No, because we're in this topic of B2C. I just want to quickly get to that. But yes, such a good comment to talk about AI. So Felipe is asking, what's more important for driving user adoption for virtual experience? Is it photorealistic graphics, or is it seamless, intuitive interaction design, or maybe something else?
Yeah, so it depends a bit on the use case, in fact, but it's more about interaction and engaging things happening, and it's pretty okay to have maybe not that really photorealistic graphics, and sometimes it's not yet possible in the browser, working on that, but people really love that stuff. So people are playing Fortnite and using Roblox and stuff like that. So it's not always about the graphics. Maybe for 5% of the user it helps. So it's more about interaction. So compared to, let's say, a Zoom call where someone is talking, everyone should listening, and in fact they are reading emails and answering short messages and stuff like that, compared to something where you can control where you are. Using spatial audio, when you come closer to each other, you will hear each other, and then you can speak with each other. You can decide the speeds, the amount of content you are consuming, and all that stuff. So people love that stuff. So it's, from my perspective, not only the graphics, but for sure it helps to be amazing, and especially for older guys that used to play computer games, it's helpful.
Makes sense, totally. Yeah, I mean, it feels more like the real world when we have a spatial audio and high quality visuals and so on. So it makes sense. Another question: what's the secret to making a business or training tool feel fun and engaging without making it feel silly or unprofessional? Like, what did you guys do about the fun part? Are there elements in your platform that will create that, or guidelines?
So on one hand, it should be easy to use, not only from the creator's perspective, it's also from the user or visitor's perspective. Pretty easy to use. And what we figured out is that we need to implement different ways of controlling. So one might only use the left button of the mouse for turning around. It should be okay. And if they double click, maybe they jump somewhere. Some are familiar with teleports features, so they can use the right mouse button and teleport somewhere. And some of the gamers, like Casey and me, possibly, we are using WASD on the keyboard to control, and it's also possible. So that's also fun. If you expect a solution to do something, it should be there, but really easy to use, accessible. And then it's about the avatar. So it makes a difference if you see your own avatar, and you can set up your very own avatar, and it's me, and it's gaming, and it's fun. That's helpful. And when seeing your avatar while working through these virtual worlds, that's a lot of fun. Interacting with others is also a lot of fun. And then there's also that element of interaction, of gamification. When I collect some coins, something will happen. When I answer something correct, then a door will open and stuff like that. So that is really helpful. Gamification is the short answer. So talking a lot.
No, these are all helpful. Avatar part has been one of the funnest part. I remember, when we were creating immersive experiences, people will spend a lot of time just dressing up their avatar, putting makeup on, all of that, before even getting into the world. So, and then sharing it with their friends, look at me. And, sometimes they're not even realistic. We've seen some platforms like Zepeto and others. It's kind of cartoonish, but it has its own version of fun, to kind of see an anime version of yourself. But yeah, I mean, you touched on really good points and gamification and all of that. So let's now get into the topic of AI that Casey brought up. And I know Brian and many others are excited about it. Maybe tell us a little bit about how your platform is addressing this demand now for this new hype, the generative AI, and what you guys have incorporated or planning to do.
So in fact, we're using AI components since years, also before the hype. But it's pretty cool. It's useful, and it speeds up the development when it comes to large language models and Gen AI and so on. So maybe starting there. So we thought that it should be very easy to create a 3D object just out of photos. And we do have patents in Europe and the US for creating 3D objects out of only some photos. And that was amazing, but it was not AI. So algorithms and a lot of work and stuff like that. And now that we can use AI, we put into that very long process of a lot of steps, we put some AI components in there. So now we generate also a 360-degree video of a product, of photos that you uploaded, and then we extract some of the frames of that video. And now we do have, again, enough photos for our process, even if you only uploaded 2 pictures or maybe 1. So that is one part AI is pretty helpful for, and our focus in creating really exact digital twins. So it can't be somehow generative AI, the people with 6 fingers or something. It must be a match from our perspective. And then it's also about generating panoramic views surrounding you inside these experiences. It's about, as Casey already said, avatars you can speak with and so on. But the really mind-blowing part is what we are working these days on, and it will be released this year. I promise. It's amazing what we already have in place. So it's about creating whole virtual worlds with prompts. So saying, okay, I need a showroom for my product, you name it, and then we will grab data from your website, pulling pictures into our system automatically, figuring out the colors of your company, name, YouTube videos, whatever we figure out, and then setting up a showroom or creating a training session on the basis of a prompt. And I'm pretty happy what I can already see what is there, and it's amazing. And that is the hot shit, so to say, what we are working on, creating the whole virtual world on the basis of a prompt. Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah, it makes sense that basically AI helped you fill in the gaps for the information that you needed from the customer, and then also making it very seamless for them to get onboarded, because that's often a part of friction, right? Casey, what would you say about that from your experience?
Well, one thing I was going to ask, I know, they had several large companies, furniture and other retail companies that were early on and, starting to digitize all their products. And I know it was costly when you want to digitize and want to make 3D of a lot of your products. And I'm assuming, Hans, that, this has really opened the door for access to companies now, that the cost has come considerably down. And do you see that just keeping going forward?
Yeah, it's again about, in the end, democratizing 3D. So making it easy as possible, powered by AI somehow. So it's not that much time consuming. It's really easy to use for the customers, and it gives you another pretty good starting point. And it's always when creating 3D environments, even if you give people a template. So we learned that, Casey, haven't we? So that people need sometimes more than a starting point. So what is the storytelling? How to guide people through that experience? I do have content, but how to make use of that virtual immersive world, and by helping people with that, as I said, powered with AI, that is a game changer, and that will help the furniture industry, will help the people in culture departments and so on. So that's the real power from my perspective.
Yeah, and it probably is a game changer for, I know you've worked with Shopware and different companies like that. I mean, it's a game changer to start really bringing e-commerce into this at the next level.
Yeah.
So. Yes. Yeah, then it becomes so easy and intuitive that anyone can do it. That's awesome. And we do have a question related to that. Shadi says, for a creative person, like an artist or designer who doesn't know how to code, what's the very first step to bringing an idea to life on a platform like yours? Is it as simple as like just creating an account and jumping in? How would you describe it? What's the first step?
these days, it is that simple, creating an account, jumping in, selecting a template that fits best what you have in mind, and then just clicking the walls or the floor, changing some colors, adding your logos, and it's really easy to use to start at a certain point and then adding some interactions. So we do have that action manager, we call it that way. It's a no-code solution to add interactions. So if I collect this and this and this, then a chest should appear, and I could open the chest, and inside the chest is something. And if I answer a question correctly, then a door should open. All that stuff can be done inside the platform without any coding skills. You could use coding skills if you have some, for sure, but it's no code. And so it's very easy to use. And looking forward to that release of our AI features, then also the interactions will be added automatically to the scene, but will take some more weeks.
Of course. Awesome. Thank you for the question, Shadi, and great answer, Hans. Brian is asking, so your virtual world can be an output of an agentic flow, correct? Is it possible for you to use Room interface to directly interact with some setup or agentic systems?
Yeah, it's possible. And maybe we can dive into that a bit deeper. So Room is just HTML and JavaScript. So it's just web-based. And it's really easy to integrate any existing solution out there. So on the one hand, you can talk, I don't know who's familiar with that, REST API, so common wording. So you can control almost everything out there. But you can also call just HTML, just another website, a script, whatever. And so you can easily connect also agentic stuff, controlling that from Room, and also controlling Room through agentic AI via REST API, via HTML and JavaScript. So that's also the amazing part. So we do have a live front-end API. So you can control, read, interact with everything that happens. And that's a big difference to any game engine like Unity or Unreal Engine. They're pretty amazing for sure. But so it's easier to interact with the scene in real time. And for sure, you can use agentic AI to manipulate, add stuff, controlling stuff right from the scene. Yeah.
Amazing. While we're at the technical conversation, let's get into another technical question. How does Room's web-based approach handle performance and graphical fidelity for thousands of concurrent users compared to a standalone application?
Yeah, and that was the tricky part. So, as I said, typically you need the specialized hardware, gaming PC running stuff like that, what we created. And so we were focusing on how to bring that right in the browser to a lot of people. And so the magic is somehow inside our platform. We call it Room Ready and Room Convert. So we wrote stuff for making 3D objects as small as possible. So just to drop some wordings, forget for all the people that are not that technical. So it's about remeshing and decimating, all that stuff, and creating different 3D objects with different sizes and textures and all that stuff. And we're using a lot of tricks. So they call shaders to let it should look as good as possible, but use very low bandwidth, very low memory consumption. And that was what we're leaning in, preparing that stuff inside our platform in the backend, and then let the devices of the users just display all the stuff, but not using stuff like, I don't know if you heard about app streaming and pixel streaming. So you can use gaming frameworks like Unity or Unreal Engine, throw them into a hosting environment, and then every visitor that visits your experience will get his very own virtual gaming PC. So that is bad from the cost perspective, bad from the environment perspective, energy consumption and all that stuff. We were focusing more on shrinking the objects and all that stuff. And somehow, to share that, it's inspired by the 90s when I was starting creating computer games. So we had the problem, everything we create, the whole game should fit on a floppy disk. So that's where we started. And so you had to be very creative. So maybe some of you guys remember Doom or Wolfenstein 3D or whatever. So it was about shrinking all this stuff, let that look as good as possible. And so we're doing a lot of tricks in the end, but it works. And so I'm happy that we can deliver amazing experiences to a lot of people at the same time.
Wow. Thank you for the comprehensive answer, and thanks for the question, Felipe. So let's talk about your enterprise use cases or case studies that you've done. You have worked with Porsche, DHL, and many others. Maybe you can share a case study of how a virtual showroom or hybrid event on your platform actually created tangible, measurable ROI for these brands.
Yeah, so I can share maybe one or two. Unfortunately, we are not allowed to share all of them because big companies, NDAs, and all that stuff. And sometimes it's Room, and you have no idea about that because there's no naming, it's white labeling. But I can also share my screen. So there is, for example, the Deutsche Telekom or T-Mobile. You're familiar with T-Mobile, I'm pretty sure. T-Mobile using our platform for a lot of different cases. In that example, it's Tech Boost, and they use that for briefing analysts, partners, customers, give them ideas and insights of the actual of the development and so on. And it's used as an amazing platform, not that heavy physical product focused, more on that stuff that T-Mobile and Deutsche Telekom are doing. And the amazing parts with that platform, so talking about the ROI, that there was more engagement than in any other typical, let's say, video stream or YouTube streaming or whatever. So it was 5 times more engagement. So that's what they measured. It was 3 times the attendees that would visit a physical event.
Wow.
Because it was easy to get into. And especially when you have an event that maybe lasts for, let's say, 3 or 4 hours, and you have people from all over the US or people from all over the world that should join that event for only some hours or maybe in a day, then it reduces, for sure, it's clear, or it reduces the costs, it reduces the emissions, it triples in that case the number of attendees. It was a lot of engagement there. So it was 1/3 of the costs of the physical event normally consumes. So it was a huge success. And there were and there are numerous events, also trainings and so on inside our platform that really makes sense from an ROI perspective. And it's also about trainings. So now that more and more companies focusing on reducing costs, so they figured out, okay, I can do these trainings with immersive technology, like, okay, I should say a huge German car manufacturer, not saying the name, using that technology for educate all their employees in the shop floor for how to assemble the cars. And it reduced the costs dramatically in all plants they have. And that's amazing cases. Or maybe to share also another one. Share my screen again. It's also mind-blowing because we could satisfy all that gaming stuff we typically have in mind. So in that case, it's more gamified avatars, but we have 7 different avatar systems, but it was that focus on gamification. It's a bit like, I don't know, Fortnite or something like this. And it's a festival. And they switched their whole website. It's a Sun, Moon, and Stars festival in Germany. And they switched the whole website. So the whole website is using our environment with a lot of different spaces, interactions, avatars, talking to each other. And so they extend the brand from just 3 days a year from that festival to a whole year brand with also settings and events where DJs are there and selling tickets, selling digital stuff, and you can just cheer and partying and all that stuff. And it's also an amazing use case of how to utilize that technology, replace possibly your parts of your website and extending your brand for the whole year. So that's
I was preaching the evergreen thing for a long time, and it's like, I think finally, customers, SMS Festival is one that really, was a great case for that, because I think there's such power in the ease of access to be able to go in prior to an event and see everything and be able to buy tickets to it and check out some of the music or some of the tech that's going to be at, if it's more of a conference. And then after the fact, there's always stuff you don't see, especially at a conference. You go, and if it's a big conference you don't see, I always thought, man, I'd love to be able to walk back in there and be able to go back to the booths, go back to some of the information and get the information that I missed, or be able to get more information. And that whole evergreen approach can just drive so much more engagement. And because it's web-based, it's just a link, from your site. So it's like, to me, that's still a huge opportunity for companies that are doing events or festivals is having this, instead of thinking on this, one event at this one time, start thinking bigger into, this broader evergreen approach when it comes to this. And this is what this kind of stuff allows you to do, which I think is really exciting for companies.
So basically, not only using these technologies to make things more accessible, but also solving for some of the challenges of physical experiences that is so limiting and costly. So really good examples. Thank you for sharing that. And one thing that we promised our audience we were going to talk about is this city planning project that you guys did. I think that's a very unique application of your platform or immersive experiences in general. Maybe you can share a little bit about, how did you guys use immersive technology to help cities co-create these sustainable environments?
So it's about using every type of our technology in the end. So they used it on the one hand, placing a 3D object on the website of a project, for example, in cities where they planned to build something, and typically people don't like that change and new stuff that is built inside cities. So it matters to give them an idea of how it will look. So they placed the 3D object inside the website, and before these times, that stuff. So they print something, and then there is a flyer or a picture, and then you should have an idea how it will look. And it makes a totally difference. Sharing the website, pretty good. So it makes a completely difference by placing it on a website. Let them experience that with VR. And what they also did with our platform, or we did that together, is using augmented reality. You stand there where the whatever should be built, and then you scan the QR code, place the whole building there, and then you can have a look, as you see here, have a look, how will it look when it is done? And that helps a lot, giving them ideas. And that was mind-blowing, because even projects they tried that for years and decades sometimes, and people were arguing, no, we don't want that here in place. And after using our technology, that's what we learned. So people were willing to have that stuff in place because they had an idea, they know exactly how it will look, they had time, and that changed almost everything. And it's also about letting people participate, as you see here. So we gave them tools, you see that here, so that they could suggest ideas. So it's about a co-creation process of a new park. So what should be there? Some buildings, some toys, and whatever. And people could create inside our platform their ideas, the new park, share that. And so then it will be selected. And so they could be part of the process. And that matters. And it's some amazing ideas were created that was also a lot of fun, and also people again participated, and that mattered. Now it was also their idea.
That's amazing. Yeah, because often city planning is not something that you would think it would be fun, or it will really engage people. So this is such a unique use case that we can use these technologies. And how was the response from the city that you were working with, or the people that were involved?
Yeah, they were blown away, because in one case it took 2 decades to get that project running, and they tried it again and again and again, and then after using that technology, people were happy, they were supportive, they really liked that. And so that changed the relation between the citizens and somehow the governance in the city, and that changed a lot.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. As we are approaching towards the end of the show, and we had such a great time, I'm curious, you've been building this incredible platform, navigating these turbulent markets. What's next for you and Room beyond what you shared with the AI stuff? What are you most excited about building in the coming years?
Yeah, as you already said, so the AI stuff is the really hot thing. And on the other hand, it's about improving the graphics. So now that we have web GPU, maybe some of you are familiar with that, in place, we can improve the graphics. We can use the real graphic cards of the hardware that is used, and it is not any longer limited to a browser. And that helps us a lot, using KTX also. And it will help us to deliver graphics that look really astonishing, like really good Unity, or maybe better Unreal Engine environments, pretty realistic, really good live lightning and stuff like that. So really looking forward to that, and also looking forward to more integrations into XR headsets, already working on them, some of them, and there will come amazing classes and headsets to the market in the next few months and years.
Amazing. And Casey, do you have anything to add in terms of, what are you looking forward to for Room and others?
Yeah, well, I think first, I think like I said, the technology now has caught up. The time's here. It's all going forward, and I think there's some just exciting stuff for Hans and Room, and I too. I thank you, Hans, for pushing through, you and the team, because I think not many people may know it, but I think the industry, we owe some gratitude to people like you that were in this so early and developing and creating some of these technologies and how to utilize them. And you've pushed through, and you're still going. So kudos to you and the team, and I'm thankful for that.
Oh, thank you, Casey, and thank you for all your amazing support. So it's been a ride and a journey, but you were very supportive, and yeah, we have to be very agile in the end, but it's also part of the game and part of the fun.
Amazing.
That's right.
Cool. So for the innovators, technologists, brand leaders that want to connect with you, how should they reach out? Is LinkedIn a good place, or on the website? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so for sure, follow me on LinkedIn. So I will share more insights regularly. And you can also visit our website. So there are a lot of use cases, demos. Just register, reach out to us if you have an idea of partnering with us. So visit our website also. There's a lot of stuff to learn.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thanks to our amazing audience, Felipe, Brian, Shadi, Ian, Jean, Shada, Giuliano, and Chris, Halil, Alexander, and anyone else who will be watching the recording or didn't comment. We're so grateful for you. This wouldn't be possible without your support. And please be back next week. We have another amazing guest joining us, focusing on spatial computing and robotics. Thank you all. Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Casey, for the introduction and contribution. And I'm so grateful. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.